Raise your hand if you know what the law of attraction is, you know how to use it. Now, keep your hand raised if you've manifested everything you want in life. Hey guys, let's talk about the law of attraction today and why it's a little bit of a scam. If you're new here, my name's Kay. I make commentary and research style videos about spirituality. If you end up liking the video, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, something. It really helps the channel out. This is a new style of content that I'm doing, so any help helps. So we're talking about the foot on the spiritual community's neck that is the law of attraction. At this point, there's so many like blogs, videos, movies, research articles, tweets, whatever about this. I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of it, but because there are so many sources, we're going to focus on what I would consider to be the main source that like popularized the law of attraction as far as like mainstream media, which is The Secret. We're going to use that movie and break it down to talk about the different ways that people are talking about the law of attraction and also just what it is in general and why the way that it has been presented is not necessarily all the way there.
Imaginary craziness.
So essentially the main claim of the law of attraction is that if you think positively, good things will happen to you. Like you're creating your reality at all moments in time, which is definitely true, but spoiler alert, essentially what this video is going to be about is that there isn't just one universal law that rules the universe. And the reason why the law of attraction either doesn't work for people or even why people have criticisms of the law of attraction when it comes to things like victim blaming and explaining, I'll put it on the screen because I don't want YouTube to demonetize my channel for saying it, but the reason why these things don't necessarily align with the law of attraction is because they're not talking about all of the other spiritual laws that also govern the universe. So the movie starts with this like super dramatic scene. They start the scene and they say this is the greatest secret of life, and then right after it they go into the fact that actually there's more than one secret of life, like there's more universal laws. But like I said in the beginning, that's the main part of why I have an issue with the way the law of attraction is taught, and I'll teach you guys a little bit about the other laws in this video. But the thing is, like, those other laws are such like a background topic in the movie that I feel like that's what causes, number one, the law of attraction not to work and the methods to kind of just be a little bit fluff, but also number three, all of the critics of the law of attraction come from those like what ifs that can be answered from the other laws. And one of the things that I found really weird is that the way that the movie is formatted is essentially like interview style with a bunch of different philosophers, or some of them are scientists or spirit, like they have different titles or whatever, speakers, but a bunch of different people that talk about the law of attraction in their work in some way. But the part of it that I found weird is that I follow or have followed or looked into the research of some of those people before, and they talk about the other laws in their other resources, and you can even tell that like throughout the movie they talk about it a little bit, enough to where I know that during these people's interviews they probably brought it up. But the movie cuts out all of those things. Like, for example, Bob Proctor, I know for a fact because I've watched his videos, every single time he mentions the law of attraction, he also mentions the importance of understanding the conscious mind versus the unconscious mind. And I'll link a video somewhere of his, probably put a little bit of it on the screen too, of him talking about this. But that's literally like the caveat to the whole law of attraction. So the fact that they didn't necessarily like overtly bring that up, that like, hey, this only works if you're also working to reprogram your subconscious mind, is like mind-blowing to me. And I think that's why a lot of the time when people are regurgitating information and making videos on the law of attraction and saying like, oh, all you have to do is write these affirmations down, or all you have to do is do this 3-6-9 method because of Nikola Tesla or whatever. That's why people are like, what the hell are you talking about? So if you're less familiar with that concept, I really do recommend watching that whole video that I just kind of snipped in here. And again, the link will be somewhere probably in the description. But essentially what he's saying is the conscious mind is our masculine mind, the subconscious mind is our feminine mind. We all have feminine and masculine energy. The masculine energy is more projecting and dynamic. feminine energy is more receptive. So each of us have the potential, even within us, just as ourselves, to be both more projecting and receptive, right? We're receptive to some things. We project our own energy onto other things, or sometimes the same thing, depending on the situation or whatever. Literally everything in the universe, down to this cup of tea, has both masculine and feminine energy, right? Like, this was first a cup of water, and then this masculine force, the tea bag, got put in here. The masculine force in here, and the water became receptive to the flavor of the tea bag, right? Like, everything has masculine and feminine energy. Now, this tea bag is more masculine in relation to the water in the cup, but in relation to my hand, it's more feminine, right? It's receptive to like whatever my hand wants to do with this. If I want this tea bag to go in the trash, it's gonna go in the trash. I wanted it to go in the cup, it went in the cup, okay? So like, it applies to everything. It has nothing to do with the gender that you identify with or literally anything like that. So back to our actual mind, we have our conscious mind and we have our subconscious mind. And as you guys saw, Bob Proctor draws it as like a circle with the conscious mind on top and the subconscious mind on the bottom. Really, it's like the foreground and the background type of thing. So your conscious mind is the part of your mind that's like, I'm gonna go on a diet, I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna start dating again, or whatever. And your subconscious mind is kind of like the filter that your conscious mind's projections have to go through before it actually transmutes into something that you can take action on. So if your subconscious mind has this belief of like, if you start dating again, you're gonna get murdered or something, that's really dramatic. But if your subconscious mind has that, that's a part of your paradigm, as Bob Proctor calls it, then you're going to find that you're not able to take action on that, at least not consistently, right? That's why people go on diets and then after 3 days they stop. They have this paradigm that says, who knows what it is, it's different for everyone. Maybe it's food, food is a scarce resource for me because of their childhood situation with food, or, you guys can kind of apply it, you get what I'm saying. But before you can really consistently change your actions, which changes your results, your subconscious mind has to be reshaped in order to align with what your conscious mind is trying to do. That's essentially the whole way that the law of attraction works. But what people are doing is focusing more on the conscious mind and not focusing as much on the subconscious mind, or at least not focusing on it in a way that is going to net them the result that they need. So a really easy way to understand like what your current paradigm is, what kind of beliefs are in your current paradigm, is to just look at your reality. Like everything, this is what they mean when they say that your reality is shaped by your mind, your subconscious mind though. So your financial thermostat is set by your subconscious mind, your weight thermostat, or your set weight, I think they call it, is set by your subconscious mind. All of these things, like everything in your life that becomes a consistency, or even when you try to change, you go back to this, this like set point. That's because that's where your paradigm is set.
So if you're complaining about how bad it is, what you're creating is more of how bad it is.
So this is the first place in the movie where I'm like, that's not really true. Like the reality is that the way that our world works is that we're constantly swinging mentally between the polarities on the pendulum. So even the judgment that something is good or something is bad, you can expect that to cause you to swing to the other polarity at some point. So I just saw a TikTok and this person was saying that stripping is low vibrational, and I just wanted to say actions are not low vibrational, thought patterns are. So if we think about sound waves, which is where this terminology first came from, science, lower vibrational sound waves, what that means is that from a point of zero, neutrality, the sound wave is oscillating further apart from the space. In higher vibrational sounds, it's oscillating closer to that space of zero. So thinking about thought patterns, these thought patterns like, oh my God, stripping is terrible, it's bad, it's the worst thing, or oh my God, veganism is the best thing that you can do, it's the most spiritual thing in the world. Both of these are low vibrational things. Not to say that eating vegetables is low vibrational or that stripping is all the time high vibrational in its essence, or when the person is doing that thing, because it depends on their thought patterns. So I know that you guys are probably thinking like, actually that's not really true, because obviously some people have had success with these law of attraction methods. Like some people have had success just like thinking positively. And here's the reason why. They already had a negative charge to that thing. So if you already have, you're over here, like say that these are the poles, this is the pendulum that you're swinging between, and this is the positive, this is the negative. If you're already all the way over here on the negative, and then you add some positive, you end up coming into the middle of the pendulum, so you have less swings. But also, even when people are doing it that way, you'll find that because they focus on adding in the positive, sure, if you start over here all the way in the negative, like you just feel completely negative about this area of your life, your financial status, and then you add some positive, great. At some point you're going to get to the middle, and that's where the key point is, where you can start manifesting things. But then if you get to the middle and then you keep adding positive, you get yourself to this almost like kind of delusionally positive state. This is where people get into the spiritual bypassing and things like that, and then you're going to eventually swing. Okay, so I'm going to read you guys a quote from one of the founders of quantum physics, and I'm going to have to read it off my laptop, but his name is Max Planck. And he says, all matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. There's like a larger grand scheme here of what he's talking about, but one of the universal laws that the universe runs by, besides the law of attraction, is sometimes it's called the law of correspondence, sometimes it's called the law of other things, but essentially what it means is that the microcosm is equal to the macrocosm, macro, micro. So within ourselves, if we're thinking just like about our own lives, how we can make the law of attraction work for us, how we can make universal laws and spiritual laws work for us, what he's saying here is that the conscious mind, let me go back to where he says, so he says, all matter exists only by virtue of force. That's your conscious mind. And then he says, after a little bit, he says, we assume behind that force, behind that conscious mind, the existence of an intelligent mind. He says, and he describes it as a conscious and intelligent mind. So, and then he said, this mind, the background mind, is the matrix of all matter. So what he's saying here on like a personal level is like, yeah, you have that conscious mind that's saying like, I'm going to start my diet tomorrow. I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to start, wearing perfume every day or anything like that. But then behind that is your mind of all matter in your own existence, your more intelligent mind that has to kind of run, that conscious mind has to kind of run everything through that subconscious mind. So I don't want to paint the movie as being all bad. Like there are lots of like I said, it's not even necessarily, I believe in the law of attraction, right? So it's not necessarily that I'm saying the law of attraction is fully a scam. It's just that it's a half truth, which is kind of like everything. But I wanted to break down in this video why it is, so that you guys understand why people have criticisms and why people are in favor for it and why both of them are correct.
The leaders in the past who had the secret wanted to keep the power and not share the power. So they kept people ignorant of the secret. People went to work, they did their job, they came home. They were on a treadmill with no power because the secret was kept in the few.
This is something that I hate hearing, and it's something that people say in the spiritual community a lot, and even in like the conspiracy theory communities, but there is this notion that there is like the powers that be, or the elites, or the leaders of our society who are holding everything back from us. And in the movie they say something like that too. They're like, the leaders in the past didn't want you to know about this amazing law of attraction, but we're the saviors and we're gonna bring the information to you. But here's the thing, someone could even say that about this video, because like I told you guys before, they're telling you things, but they're not really telling you the things. Like they're telling you, hey, there's this law, but they're not fully telling you how it works. And they know how it works, because I know, like I told you guys, the people in the video talk about it in their other works that are usually behind paywalls, and the people in the video also, even like inside of the actual movie, allude to it, but they just don't elaborate on it. And the thing is, all of the things that people in the spiritual community tell you guys about as well, We learned all of this stuff in school. Like, I didn't pay that much attention to science in school, but I've noticed as I've studied spirituality more, every single thing that I learn is stuff that I learned in science class or in geometry or whatever. And it's just that, like this movie is doing, if you want to standardize a piece of information for the masses, you have to make sure it's at a level of consciousness that everyone can understand, right? So if I were to really study science, I would realize, and scientists are realizing this now, that a lot of the things that spiritualists have been saying, and maybe they didn't necessarily, it's usually downloads for them, right? Or it's usually things that they get from source, not necessarily understanding it intellectually or scientifically, but they end up lining up, right? Every time science comes out with a new discovery, the spiritual community is like, yeah, we've been telling you that for 10 years and you guys have been calling us crazy. But the thing is that when you're presenting that information to a large group, like with this movie, or like with elementary school, when they're trying to teach literally all of these kids from different backgrounds, you have to align it with their level of consciousness. In communities where they say like, oh, the celebrities are putting hidden messages in their artwork and things like that. A lot of people's art, especially that goes far reaching, same thing with the spiritual community. A lot of them are channeling it, whether they know that they're channeling or not, but they're channeling universal truths that can be related or deciphered in different ways for people that are at different vibrations. So someone who maybe is not spiritual at all will listen to someone's song and get one thing from it, and then you see someone who is maybe more in the spiritual community or even in the conspiracy community that looks at this person's lyrics or this person's painting or whatever, and they can see the symbolism of it, the hidden symbolism, or they can see these hidden messages. The thing with it is that the interpretation of that thing depends on where someone is on that polarity, right? If you look at the swastika, Hitler obviously made people kind of project a certain belief onto that symbol. But if you look at Hindu culture, that symbol is an amazing symbol of, I can't even remember what it is, I'll put it on the screen, but it's nothing malicious. So if you go to India and someone sees a swastika, they're going to think one thing, or if they have a swastika tattooed on them, they're going to look at that symbol as one thing. Whereas if that same person then migrates to the US and they have a swastika on them, people are going to be like, what the hell, right? So a lot of it is very much projection, but you have to understand which one is right. Is the person right who says that the swastika means something good, or is the person right who says that the swastika means something bad? Both. Right? Obviously, to that person, that swastika means something bad because of their personal experience with that symbol, their personal knowledge of that symbol. That doesn't change the symbol, right? When you go to India, they know that symbol to mean something different, so they project that influence onto the symbol. In reality, everything is neutral, right? So I say all that to say that, sure, you could go around and say like, oh, the powers that be and the elite and the world leaders are holding information back from us, or you can understand that all of this information is pretty readily available. And the thing is that in order for it to be kind of presented to the masses, it has to be in a way dumbed down, or at least like that truth being hidden in plain sight type of thing, where instead of feeling like it should be force-fed to you, a better approach could be that you could look deeper into things yourself, because it's all really there. Like I said, a lot of these things, all of these universal laws, tie back to scientific principles that we were taught in school. It's just that it wasn't necessarily taught to us or presented to us in that way. But if we were to look deeper into it and contemplate it on our own, there's no one stopping you from being able to understand that information and how it translates to different areas of your life. The same thing happens when people say like, oh, I want to manifest more money in my life, I want to manifest more money, and then they're going around saying, eat the rich. Okay, this isn't necessarily lining up, because even the projection of eat the rich, all of the millionaires are corrupt, or whatever it may be, everyone sells their soul to get $1 million or whatever. Putting that projection onto that financial level is only holding you back from reaching your own financial levels. A better way to understand it is that the microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm. And in this case, the microcosm is celebrities, right? There's less of them. and the macrocosm is our society as a whole. So what celebrities are showing us are influencers, world leaders, presidents, whatever minority group you want to kind of zone in on. What they're showing us is just a reflection of our society as a whole, right? So the next part of the movie, they get into this space where they talk about you have created everything in your reality, and this is probably the biggest criticism of the law of attraction that I've personally seen, that people are like, how can you tell someone that when they were born into poverty or where they've been abused in some way or something like that? And I think a lot of Eastern philosophies would kind of chalk that up to the notion of past lives and the notion of karma and things like that, and I do believe in that as well. But I think maybe an easier, digestible way to present that to people would be to understand that there's a difference between presented stimuli in your life and your personal reaction to that stimuli. So I think what the law of attraction is saying here is that not necessarily that you can control all of the stimuli that's presented to you, but you have full control over your personal reaction to everything that's presented to you in life, and that ends up determining what the next stimuli that is presented to you will be. I feel like notions of like abuse, poverty, neglect, and things like that, just the presence of them in our society as a whole is more of a societally manifested thing. Like, I don't think any one person is manifesting neglect in their lives. I don't think a 3-year-old child can manifest neglect or abuse or something like that. I do think the presence of children being abused in general, or anyone being abused in general, or neglected in general, or any of those things, is a manifestation of our collective society manifesting as a whole. Again, we have the microcosm and the macrocosm, so as much as you are manifesting things in your specific life on an everyday basis, society is also manifesting things every single day.
You know, the anti-war movement creates more war. The anti-drug movement has actually created more drugs.
And this is where I feel like they got it really right in the movie, is because they have this part in the movie where they talk about how zoning in on what you don't want in your own life, but also on a grand scale, on a societal scale, only magnifies that thing. And that's true. What you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on as a society, like, I'm anti-poverty, I'm anti-neglect, we need to say eat the rich because they're holding the majority of the wealth, or even the like Illuminati things of like, oh, these celebrities are evil, let's focus on the fact that these people are evil, or focus on the fact that these people hold an imbalanced amount of power in our society. It's only giving them more power. The fact that you keep focusing on the things that you don't have is only making you realize more of the things that you don't have. Those tests that people do where they're like, find a red item in the room, right? And you find a red item in the room, maybe you find 3 or 4, and then they ask you, okay, find a pink item, or what is an item in the room that's pink? You don't know, right? Because you were focusing on the red stuff. And you can probably name more than one red thing in the room and say, oh, there was the red apple over here, there's the red pen here, there's the red whatever here. But if someone asks you for the pink, the thing is that is not what you were focusing on. It's really hard to think about that thing because you were so focused on the red. The same thing happens when you're thinking about the negative things in your life, or the things that you perceive to be negative in your life, the things that you want to change in your life. And the same thing with society. If you're constantly focusing on neglect, there will be more of a focus on neglect or poverty or whatever in our society in general, if that's what we're focusing on. What is the opposite of poverty? Abundance. What is the opposite of neglect? I don't know what the word would be, but I guess connectedness, or I don't know exactly what the word would be, but you guys know what the opposite of neglect would be. So what it's kind of saying here, and what I completely agree with, is instead of being like, we need to end neglect, we need to end poverty, focus on making everyone in our society more abundant. Focus on making everyone in our society more connected, or more paid attention to, or whatever the case would be, right?
You're getting exactly what you're feeling about, not so much what you're thinking about.
Another one of the statements in the movie that I felt was like, they hit the nail on the head, and it was something that I wish they would have expanded on more because it was so important. They said, your feelings are a meter to help you understand your mindset. And this is it. Like, this is literally the reason why we have feelings in the first place, and the reason why we feel pain in our bodies in the first place. It's to kind of give you like a signal, like, hey, this is going on, you're out of balance in this area, this is why you're feeling this way. And I go over this a lot, just a little plug, I go over this a lot in my moon guide course, which I will link down below. Essentially, it's a course to help you balance the moon energies in your life. What happens is, if we have an imbalance that's stemming mentally, just like we're a reflection of the macrocosm and the microcosm, within yourself and your own environment, your body, mind, and spirit are also always reflecting each other. So your mental state is being reflected in your body. The pain that you have in your body is being reflected, is a reflection of your mental state, and then vice versa. So what will happen is, if you have some kind of imbalance mentally, it'll show up in your body, and then if you keep kind of going further to that polarity, it gets worse and worse in your body.
See those hands, your fingers wrapping around the steering wheel of your brand new car.
Okay, this one's a really good one. This is a really good manifestation technique, and the reason why it works, and also the way that you can make it work, is because instead of just like thinking positively like they were telling you to do before, you're putting yourself into the actual situation, which is inevitably going to include things that you both think would be positive and negative, like things that you have both a positive and negative projection on towards. I hope that makes sense. So what's even better than this is if you can go to the actual dealership and test drive the actual car that you want instead of just visualizing it, because then you're really, really putting yourself into it. And what it really does also, because a lot of people are unconsciously manifesting things that they don't want, but also consciously manifesting things they don't want. So consciously trying to manifest a specific type of partner, because this is where like the thinking positive thing F's you up, because if you're only thinking positively about something, you're not understanding the reality of what the thing is. And then when you get it, you're like, fuck, I don't want the negative things that come with this. I don't want the drawbacks, which means if you don't want the benefits and the drawbacks of that thing, that means you don't really want it. On a soul level, you don't really want to be manifesting that thing. So what really works is putting yourself into the reality of what that thing is and trying to manifest it from a state of neutrality, from a state of truth. And then understanding, it just helps you weed out the BS. Because if you are looking at this thing and you think about, okay, I want this car, and you're thinking, I want this car because it's so fast and the color is so pretty and the interior blah blah whatever, and it's gonna look good on my Instagram. But then you think about, oh, but then I'm gonna have to pay extra for the gas. I can only go to these certain places to get the maintenance on it, and it needs these specific tires or whatever. I don't know. I'm not that versed in cars. But you don't want those things. You don't really want the thing. If you're trying to manifest this job and you think, oh my God, I would love to have that job. It looks so glamorous. It's amazing. But oh, they only employ for that type of job in LA and New York. I would have to move, and then I would have to work 12 hours a day because that's standard in that industry and blah, blah, blah. You don't want to do those things. You don't want that job, right? But what happens is a lot of people manifest those things anyways because people are telling them think positively. So they're thinking the job is glamorous, the car is amazing, it's so fast, it's gonna be so great. And then they manifest it, and now you're really back where you were because you still don't have the things that you actually wanted or want truly on a soul level. So this is like my favorite. This is one of the manifestation techniques that I think is actually worth it. A lot of this stuff I think is BS. But this is one of the things that I'm like, yeah, do this because it'll help you really decide even what you want to be manifesting, and then it'll also help you manifest that thing because you're aligning with what it actually is versus trying to manifest something that doesn't even exist, like a fantasy. It's all about mental regulation, and all of these manifestation techniques that people are telling you to do is about mental regulation. So really you don't need any of them because you're with your mind all the time, whether you have a piece of paper to write things down, whether you have your vision board, whether you can remember to do your 369 Tesla thing, whether you can remember to visualize your water as a car, or whatever the hell people are telling you guys to do. Regardless of all of those things, you always have your mind, and that's what it's all about. All of these things are about mental regulation, but they're giving you, it's like busy work. Like they're giving you spiritual busy work when you could just get to the point and take the test, which is in your mind. Now, I'm not saying that those things don't work. I'm sure that the water thing, the vision boards, I use vision boards actually every single year. I always have a vision board somewhere around me. These things can work, but they're not what people are like. They're not magic. It's not like if you don't have a vision board, you're not going to be able to get what you want. The only thing that all of these things are doing is helping you to reprogram your subconscious mind. That's the whole game. That's the whole thing. That's the whole method. You can do whatever you want. Like, I used to teach a tarot class. I teach it periodically, and what I always tell my tarot students when they're like, well, how do I cleanse my deck, and how do I know that it's cleansed, and how do I make sure? I'm like, it really doesn't fucking matter. You can throw champagne on your deck, throw your deck in the air like it's dollar bills, roll around in the floor with your tarot cards, and if you think in your mind that that cleansed your deck, it cleansed your deck. If you feel the evil eye on you and you throw salt over your shoulder, you throw setting powder over your shoulder, you put super glue on your elbow, like whatever, any of these techniques that people are telling you, and you feel like that got rid of the evil eye that was on you, it did. One more quick plug. If you're interested in what I'm talking about a little more, join my Patreon. I made an article on there about which of these methods are BS. Also, how you can work a lot of these methods that I do recommend, like vision boards, to actually make it work in the way that it should. Because a lot of people are doing the, like, make your vision board, look at it every day for 10 minutes in the morning and at night or whatever, and that shit doesn't work. Because it doesn't work to reprogram your subconscious mind, which is what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. It doesn't work the way that people think they're doing it. They're approaching these things from a conscious mind level, and that's cool to look at pretty pictures, but it's not reprogramming your subconscious mind like you think it is. So I wrote an article on that. I wrote about the methods that I actually use, and I also focused on some methods that are just purely mental, like you don't need any extra tools and things, like again, like skipping the busy work and going to the tests. I put my methods for doing that in the article as well.
One, it has been proven now scientifically that an affirmative thought is hundreds of times more powerful than a negative thought.
And the second thing is that, thank God, there's a time delay.
You know, they'll turn right around and go, well, I can't afford that. Okay, guess what? Your wish is my command.
Okay, back to the video. So this is where they start contradicting themselves. So again, I'm just telling you guys, like, all of this, like, be positive or negative or whatever, that's not even what it's about. And they're showing you that. That's why they're contradicting themselves a little bit there, because it's not true. So it's not about being positive. It's about aligning with the truth that there is positive and negative with that thing. A lot of the reason why it doesn't work for people is because they're so afraid of doing something wrong, and they're like, oh my God, I said I was poor. Now all of my manifestations. And what happens when that happens? Now you're really being that, like, now you have really put yourself further on this polarity instead of just being like, oh, I said that, I didn't mean that, never mind, let me keep it moving. Like, there's a level of detachment that is needed that I don't think is pushed enough, to where people feel bad about the things that they've done and think, oh, I'm ruining my life, I'm never gonna manifest my things, when really it's like, just relax. You're gonna have a lot more success if you treat it like a game, or like just like you're like joking around with a friend or something, rather than being really strict on yourself. Because again, you're putting all of that mental pressure on yourself, and it's all about the mind. This is how the law of attraction works. This is how you manifest the things that you want. This is how you can start to live a self-led life, a self-actualized life, where you can start creating your reality. This is the name of the game. This is how it all works.
I always say, when the voice and the vision on the inside become more profound and more clear and loud than the opinions on the outside, you've mastered your life.